Welcome to some more bonus content, Lesson 6's guided exercises. I'm sure you're familiar with the format by now. There are 3 steps for each exercise. 1, I present an exercise. 2, you pause the video and try the exercise. 3, I walk you through the solution. Some exercises are practice and other exercises are quizzes. You should try testing your knowledge with quizzes. Let's hop right in. Go ahead and navigate to alvin/coding101/exercises 6. You'll then be greeted with a page like this one. In the top left, you can click on the name of the REPL.it and click on Fork. You'll then see an editable version like this one. Notice that I've changed the layout. You'll now be using the file editor on the left half of the screen instead of the interpreter on the right. Instead of an orange caret, you should be looking at the section of the page with a line number, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. On this screen, I'm going to minimize the left-hand tab here by clicking on Files. And then I'm going to drag on this center cursor so that my file is a little bit larger. All right, let's go ahead and start off with question number 1. For this first question, we have a practice problem. We want to define a function mol3 that takes a number argument and returns that number multiplied by 3. Go ahead and give it a shot. And here's the solution. Let's define the function def mol3 that accepts a single number argument. So here we'll add a parentheses. We'll call that number argument x and then add a colon. Don't forget your colon. Then return x times 3. Go ahead and run to make sure that your function and that your code is valid. Then we can try our function by typing in mol3 and 5, and that should give us 15. Question number 2, this is now a quiz. Define a function sub3 that accepts a number argument and returns that number subtracted by 3. Go ahead and try. For the solution, define sub3, it accepts a single number argument and return x minus 3. We can hit run and then try sub3, 10 should give us 7. Question number 3. This is now a practice problem. Define a function prod that accepts 2 number arguments and returns the product of both numbers. Give it a shot. And here's the solution. Define prod that accepts 2 number arguments. We'll call these x and y. Returns the product of both numbers. On the right-hand side, we're going to start off by running and then prod 3, 5 for 15. Question number 4, this is now a quiz. Define a function add that accepts 2 number arguments and returns the sum of both numbers. Give it a shot. And here's the solution. Define add xy and return the sum of both numbers. Go ahead and run, and then we can check add 3, 5 gives us 8. Question 5, this is now a quiz. Define a function prod that accepts 3 number arguments and returns the product of all 3 numbers. I'll go ahead and scroll up a little bit more so you can see the previous solution as a reference. Go ahead and give it a shot. And here's the solution. We'll define prod and we'll give it 3 arguments and return the product of all 3. Now go ahead and run. And here we now have prod 3, 5, 7, and that'll give us a big number. Okay, cool. Question 6. Define a function gt3 that accepts a number argument and returns whether or not that number is greater than 3. Give it a shot. Now define the function gt3 that accepts a single number argument. We'll call this x and returns whether or not x is greater than 3. Go ahead and hit play or run, and then we'll have gt of 5, and that should give us true. Oops, gt3 of 5, and that should give us true. Question number 7. This is now a quiz. Define a function lt10 that accepts a number argument and returns whether or not the number is less than 10. Give it a try. And now here's the solution. Define lt10 that takes in a number argument and returns whether or not the number is less than 10. Go ahead and run, and then we can check lt10. We'll type in 5, and that'll give us true. Question number 8. This is now a quiz. Define a function both gt3 that accepts 2 number arguments and returns whether or not both numbers are greater than 3. Here's a little hint. Recall that x and y, right, for some arbitrary code, x and y, will return whether or not Both of these are true. Give it a try. And here's now the solution. We'll type in the function name, both gt3. This will take in two numbers, x and y, and we'll return x is greater than 3 and y is greater than 3. Go ahead and run the code, and in the top right, we can now try this code, both gt3, and we'll type in 5 and 7, and that will return true. Question number 9, this is now practice. Define a function sum3 that accepts a list of numbers and returns the sum of that list multiplied by 3. Give it a try. And now, define sum3 that accepts a list of numbers. We'll call this list LST, and then we'll return the sum of the list multiplied by 3. Run your code, and we can try the code now. Sum3, and this will be 1, 2, 3. This sum should give us 6 times 3 should give us 18. Hit enter, and we got 18. Question number 10. This is now a quiz. A dictionary method values returns all values in the dictionary. Define a function sum_v that accepts a dictionary and returns the sum of all values in that dictionary. Now, use your function sum_v to compute the sum of all values in this particular dictionary. Let's go ahead and define, go ahead and give it a shot first. Now, let's go ahead and define this function, def sum_v. This will take in a dictionary, and it will return the sum of all the values. So here we'll do sum of all the values. And let's go ahead and run this code and try the code. Here we'll have A1, B2, and we get 3 as expected. Question number 11. This is a practice question. Define a function isJack1 that accepts a dictionary's input and checks if the number corresponding to Jack in the input dictionary is 1. Give it a shot. And now, define isJack1, pass in a dictionary, and then we will check if the dictionary's value corresponding to Jack is equal to 1. Go ahead and run your code. And here we'll write isJack1, and we'll type in Jack1, and yes, it is. We'll also try a case where this should give us false, so we'll pass in 2. And that gives us false as expected. Question number 12. This is now a quiz. Define a function add3Jack that accepts the dictionary's input and returns 3 more than the number corresponding to Jack in the input dictionary. Go ahead and give it a try. All right, and here's the solution. Let's go ahead and type in define add3Jack that takes in a dictionary. And first, you fetch the value corresponding to Jack, so dictionary of Jack, and then you add 3 to it. Let's go ahead and run this code and try this code. Add3Jack, Jack1, and that should give us 4. And then we'll also try a different value, Jack2, and that should give us 5. Perfect. All right. And once again, we want to check, how are you doing? If this was doable, that's great. If this is barely doable, don't worry, keep going and you'll build familiarity. This was a challenging lesson. We continued to not only build off previous concepts, but also integrate a number of new concepts. Number 3, if this wasn't doable, that's okay. Watch this video and the previous one again. Each time you rewatch, the concepts will sink in a little bit more. If you're feeling you've mastered this lesson, just like before, try to come up with a few extra questions and solutions. Leave them in the discussion section of the class, and your fellow students will thank you for the extra practice. That's it for Lesson 5's guided exercises. Oh, Lesson 6. Lesson 6 is guided exercises. See you in the next lesson.